Rocked by the gentle waves of the Mediterranean, home to fertile plains, mountains, and deserts, our destination is a magnificent country of incredible contrasts. With its lively markets, remarkable landscapes, and thriving civilizations that have existed for centuries, this welcoming North African country has something to interest everyone. Known as the birthplace of such comfort foods as tagine and couscous, the country of Tunisia is resolutely modern. Our itinerary will bring us from the legendary city of Carthage to Matmata, a strange little village carved out of stone. We'll also get to meet the Berber people, and we'll have the chance to see an immense salt lake in the middle of the Sahara Desert. After cooling off in an oasis, we'll visit the holy city of Kairouan, situated in the middle of the country. Come join us on our all-inclusive tour to Tunisia. We'll start our adventure in Hammamet, 60 kilometers south of Tunis. The heart and soul of this pretty seaside town is its Medina, or Old City. In the labyrinth of crisscrossing passages, the souk sellers welcome us. A souk is a market where you can find just about anything and where it's mandatory to bargain to get the very best price for the product. As the Tunisian proverb goes, I'll treat you like my brother, but we'll settle our business like enemies. All of our senses are stimulated at the market with its ancient architecture and the mouth-watering aromas of its spices. While Carthage has become a suburb of Tunis, it was once a powerful city. The Antonine Baths, which we will visit today, have been here for over 2,000 years. Our guide will take us on a real journey back in time, surrounded by lush green Mediterranean flora. Founded in the 9th century BC, Carthage was a major trading center and one of the biggest port cities in the world. In an attempt to take possession of Carthage's strategic position, its main rival, Rome, declared war and destroyed the city. The Romans then rebuilt Carthage on the ruins. The city then fell into the hands of the Vandals for 200 years, preceding the Arab conquest. The city of Carthage has inspired many literary works and legends over the ages. The legendary military commander Hannibal, who crossed the Pyrenees on the back of an elephant, was a proud Carthaginian. The majority of the ruins of the Antonine Baths, which extend along the Mediterranean coast, are Roman. Fragments of white, pink, and green marble lead us to believe that the buildings of Carthage were richly adorned with valuable materials. However, long before it was made a UNESCO heritage site, the ruins were pillaged and all of the most valuable pieces taken. Our eyes are drawn to an immense column standing by the sea. Carefully reconstructed and completely restored by archaeologists, it gives us an idea of the magnificence of the city under Roman rule. The vaulted archway it once supported is long gone, but once stood over 29 meters tall, the same height as an 8-story building. There are only a few vestiges left of the original baths, which were probably used as service areas on the building's main floor, but the details carved into the tops of the columns and the moldings all over the grounds bear witness to the exceptional Roman architecture that existed in Carthage. A short distance from Carthage, Sidi Bou Said is a charming village overlooking the sea. Perched on a cliff, its picturesque narrow streets are lined with white houses. Their blue doors and shutters make us think of the islands of Greece. Because white best reflects the light of the sun, white houses absorb less heat, allowing their inhabitants to stay a little cooler. An important consideration when we learn that the North African climate regularly sees temperatures rising to 40 degrees Celsius. Shops selling local handmade goods that Sidi Bou Said is known for bring a hit of color to the white and blue facades. Walking through the cobbled lanes, we're surprised to see examples of Andalusian architecture mixed in with the Arab-styled houses. Many Andalusian Muslims came to Tunisia in the 17th century, fleeing the repression of the Spanish Inquisition. After one last lingering gaze at the Gulf of Tunis, we head back to our hotel to get a good night's sleep, lulled by the soothing sounds of the Mediterranean waves. This morning, we trade in our tour bus for some comfortable SUVs. They will be our primary mode of transport for the next 4 days. We'll be needing their off-roading capacities for our adventure in the Tunisian desert. We'll reach today's destination, the island of Jerba, after a stop in Gabez. But first, it's unthinkable to pass by El Jem without having a look around. El Jem is home to some excellent reminders of the rich Roman past of Tunisia. Its geographical location made it a perfect stop for Roman and African merchants. And like every self-respecting city, El Jem has its own amphitheater, constructed at the start of the 3rd century. While it was inspired by the Colosseum in Rome, it is slightly smaller, with a capacity of just over 30,000 spectators. After centuries as a venue for gladiator fights and chariot races, the El Jem Arena was often used as a fortress where the city's inhabitants would go to take refuge from invaders. The structure is unbelievably well preserved, and our tour is fascinating as we walk under the archways and look into the subterranean spaces below the arena. This exceptional venue hosts El Jem's annual International Symphonic Music Festival, which gets the amphitheater vibrating with energy once again. On our way out of El Jem, we pass by kilometers of olive groves. The olives and their oil have contributed greatly to the city's economy. The city of Gabez is unique in that it is the only oasis that is located on the seaside. It's also one of the only places on the Mediterranean coast that is affected by a large tidal range. In addition to the traditional souk, which has locally made products on display, there's also the Jara'a souk, otherwise known as the Gabez Spice Market. It's popular throughout the region for the wide variety of fresh products on offer. Along with the henna powder that is famous all over the world, the Jara'a souk sells tea leaves and spices to residents of Gabez and their visitors too. The eye-catching colors and aromatic stalls won't fail to seduce you. The souk also has a selection of pre-mixed spices, each corresponding to a specific dish. With these mixes, recreating the tagines and couscous we sampled throughout our Tunisian tour will be a snap. We leave Gabez, passing by fruit orchards, on our way to the ferry that will bring us to the island of Jerba. Right on the edge of the Sahara, Djerba has often been coveted but never conquered, thanks to the heroism of the Berber people who still live there today. Legend has it that it was off the coast of Djerba that Ulysses and his companions almost lost their minds, enchanted by the songs of the mermaids. But we only hear the soothing sounds of the waves and the sheep that accompany us on our journey. Djerba is a vacationer's dream. Its beach is lined with wild palm and orange trees. We'll discover it together in the morning. After spending the morning in Djerba, our group will head for the region of Tatooine. Clean and lively, the capital of Djerba is Humt Souk, a name that means the market neighborhood. The market also happens to be the main attraction of the area and is a great place to see the products that are handmade here on the island. Djerba's specialties are weaving and pottery. Walking through the souk's arches, we breathe in the smells of the market produce and even stop to watch a fish auction. Here, fresh seafood is sold to the highest bidder. In addition to the wool and silk fabrics, Djerba specializes in sponge fishing. Mediterranean sponges can be purchased here. Our stay in Djerba is coming to an end, and it's time to head back to the mainland. But this time, we'll make the journey by road. The road connecting the island of Djerba to the continent was built in Roman times. It's 7 kilometers of driving with the sea on both sides. Our caravan stops in front of a surprising landscape. An expanse of sand and salt shows that the climate here is becoming increasingly arid. Further along, we walk through our first sand dunes. There's no doubt the desert isn't far, and Tatooine isn't either. At the Mabrouk Bakery in Tatooine, we discover the secret of the gods. They share with us the recipe for their specialty, little pastries called gazelle horns.
Voilà, c'est ça le corps de gazelle de Tatooine. Le pâte, c'est farine, l'huile d'olive et de l'eau.
We get to have a taste right then and there, and delighted with the flavor, we bring some along for the road. Driving south, green plants become rarer and rarer, and the sand starts to take over. And then we arrive in the village of Chenini, its buildings blending right into the mountains. Here, the terraced houses are partly carved out of rock, partly built onto the mountain. Flights of stairs crisscross up the walls, allowing people to get from one level of the village to another. Because of their camouflage, these houses were a safe refuge in case of a surprise attack. Today, Chenini seems like a great fortified beehive that has survived both enemy hostilities and the passage of time. The inhabitants speak a Berber dialect that has been passed on over the centuries from mother to child. At the top of the village is the storage area for the grain harvest, which was indispensable to the survival of the village. The only things that stand out in these sand-colored surroundings are the mosque and minaret, painted a dazzling white. At one time, the place of worship was a landmark for caravans. When you see the white minaret, you know you've reached Chenini. When the risk of attack abated, the village slowly emptied, its inhabitants moving to the modern town of Chenini, built around 50 years ago. But we still meet a few committed animals, faithful helpers of the villagers, used to transport heavy loads. After a look at our first desert rose, we climb up to get one last look at the city, which seems to belong to another universe. There's no doubt this is why Star Wars creator George Lucas chose to name one of the moons of his fictional planet, Tatooine, after the village of Chenini. Leaving Chenini, we drive toward Qasar Hadada, very typical of Berber architecture. A qasar is a fortified village, like Chenini. The Berbers have been living in a vast area across North Africa, including the Sahara, for thousands of years. Berber, their common language, is distinct from Arabic, and each region has its own dialect. The word Berber comes from the Latin barbarus, which means foreigners. Fortunately, the name of these people was translated as Berber rather than barbarian, a name that wouldn't be suitable at all because, as we shall see, the Berbers are anything but uncivilized. While some Tunisian Berbers are still nomadic, the majority have settled in communities like this one in Qasar Hadada. Most of the residents no longer live in the Qasar, but many spend their vacations here. And as we are also here on vacation, we can't resist taking a few photos up in the windows of these age-old buildings. Astonishingly, the main attraction in this area is a hotel. Close to the Qasar, director George Lucas filmed scenes from Star Wars Episode I, The Phantom Menace. It was here that he created the village of Mos Espa, where Anakin Skywalker was born. As well, the name of the fictional planet Tatooine was inspired by the Tunisian region of Tatooine, a rare example of American cinema paying homage to the fascinating Tunisian South. With houses like these, it's easy to think that we're in another galaxy. Other than goat and sheep herding, tourism is one of the region's biggest sources of revenue. The local economy owes a lot to Star Wars, which brings hordes of science fiction fans to the region every year. Another desert road brings us to a cave village. In fact, the houses of Matmata are carved directly into the rock, while in Chenini they were built onto the side of the mountain. Each of the houses of Matmata is arranged around a central court. This is where the traditions that have been carried on for millennia are passed down from generation to generation. We get a taste of Berber hospitality, drinking traditional mint tea before we roll up our sleeves. Here we will learn to make Berber bread. It's a flatbread like pita, but thicker and heartier, handmade on a stone. We're a long ways from our food processors, but this tradition is more interesting than the push of a button. This bread is made from whole grains and local olive oil and seasoned with authentic Berber flavors like fennel and cumin. In Matmata, the rooms on the main floor are used as bedrooms, with benches and beds carved into the rock wall. The upper rooms are used for storing food and tools. Most residents live in New Matmata, a modern city built around 15 kilometers away. In summer, however, they leave their modern homes, preferring their cool cave dwellings carved into the ground. When we consider that summer temperatures can rise to 50 degrees Celsius, we understand. While the Berbers of Matmata have been exceptionally warm and hospitable, it's time to head out, setting our course for Medellin, where we will discover another important aspect of Berber culture. Handicrafts play a large economic and social role within Berber culture. In this mountainous region where agriculture is difficult, it's a vital income supplement for many families. At the Medellin Artisan House, Berber jewelry is the main attraction. Known for its bright colors and fine detailing, Berber jewelry is carefully made by hand. Many of the pieces are made out of silver and decorated with ribbons and enamel. After a few well-spent dinars, the local currency, our caravan gets back on the road, this time heading for our hotel. At the camp, we're told that we'll be spending the night nomad style in the serene desert night, but with all the conveniences of a Western hotel, pool included. We'll sleep in luxurious tents surrounded by palm trees, but our day isn't over yet. As the sun dips lower, we prepare for a short trek on the back of a dromedary. With the wind coming up on a stunning desert landscape, we'll ride over the dunes of the Sahara. Dromedaries have been working with humans for thousands of years and have the unique ability to take us steadily through the sandy dunes. Contrary to popular belief, the dromedary's hump is not a water reserve, but rather a place to store energy. Dromedaries accumulate fat in the hump, which they then consume to supplement their meager diet on long trips where food is scarce. We are rocked by the smooth motion of our mounts and can't help but enjoy the adventure. Our trek ends under the last rays of the setting sun. The great beasts have given us a unique experience, and we'll think of them as we fall asleep in our tents. Now that we're seasoned camel riders who sleep among the dunes like nomads, we can't resist any opportunity to add to our adventure. We take advantage of the gentle weather and the skill of our drivers to go for a little off-roading in the dunes. After a short bumpy ride, we're back on the pavement that will bring us to our next destination, the city of Duz. From there, we'll cross the Salt Lake to go off in search of Tozer and the mountain oasis. As the gateway to the Sahara, Duz is in fact a vast oasis, the largest in the region. We're happy to stop here for a while and have a snack in one of its numerous public squares. In the past, the nomads stayed in Duz for only a few months of the year. It was one of the major trading centers of the region. This city is home to another of the souks that are so typical of the country, selling locally handcrafted items. Once a week, the souk is transformed into a donkey and dromedary market. The rest of the time, embroidered fabrics, pottery, and jewelry fill the shelves, making the souk feel like an open-air museum of Tunisian traditions. En route toward the great salt lake of Chott El Djedid, the sand whirls in the air and sweeps over the road, a perfect lead into the stunning landscapes that lie ahead. On arrival, a vast salt plain of dazzling white stretches as far as the eye can see. Small piles of salt sit on the surface of the mud and at the edges of the pinkish water. In front of us, an astounding, almost lunar landscape occupies 5,000 square kilometers between the desert and the mountains. Salt extracted from this lake is processed to be used by the locals. In winter, rain covers the salt lake with a thin layer of water, transforming it into an inland sea. In summer, the water evaporates and the light reflected on the dried salt crystals often creates mirages, those optical illusions that are an iconic piece of desert mythology. We don't stray too far from the road. We wouldn't want to get lost here. In any case, Tozer awaits on the other side of the salt lake. The city of Tozer is very welcoming to visitors. It even has a golf course nestled between the dunes and the palm groves. Our first stop, Belvedere Park, where huge sculptures pay homage to Tunisian music and poetry. We'll then visit the oasis situated in the mountains around Tozer before coming back to the city for the night. Belvedere Park is also called Lover's Park for the ceramic tiles painted with texts in celebration of love. On a nearby plateau, a statue of an eagle faces Aboul Qassem Chebi, who was born in Tozer in the early 1900s. The sculpture of the great Tunisian poet is carved right out of the rock face. "70 kilometers from Tozer, we are welcomed to the mountain oasis of Tamerza. Close to the Algerian border, this small village doesn't look like your typical oasis in the dunes. Instead, Tamerza is situated among steep mountains and rock formations. As we stroll through the village, the sandy alleys give no indication that we're even in an oasis. However, we trust our guide, following him for a panoramic view of Tamerza, which looks like a labyrinth from above. We glimpse the green palm trees below, indicating that water is not far. Carefully descending the slope, we head toward the trees that seem to have grown straight out of the rock. And then the oasis comes into view. We walk toward the clear waterfall that splashes down the mountain. This is no mirage. We are truly in a fertile oasis. The crystal clear water from the mountain feeds the streams that in turn irrigate the palm grove. It's a fabulous sight to see water gushing over rock in this arid landscape. This is too good an opportunity and too unique an experience. We can't resist the chance to cool off by running through the falls. have time to take a photo or two of this unbelievable desert waterfall, and then we're back on the road. Revitalized by this refreshing escapade, we climb a mountain for a panoramic view of the region. Even in the desert, water isn't always a good thing. In 1969, the region was devastated by unprecedented flooding, causing 400 deaths. Close to Tamerza, the village of Chebika was destroyed by the flooding. Only a few walls still stand, reminding us of the devastating power of nature. After this solemn stop, we head back to Tozer so we can see it up close. We take advantage of the slightly cooler temperatures at the end of the day to walk through the lively streets where cars share the road with horse-drawn carriages. We quickly get the feeling that Tozer is eager to please its visitors, placing all of its exotic traditions on display, even as it projects the image of a modern, safe city where residents can live the good life. Whether they are modern or centuries old, the buildings here all have something in common: the traditional Tozer bricks. A mix of clay and sand gives the bricks their yellow color. To reinforce this aspect of regional architecture, a law requires all new buildings to use at least one brick in their walls. Some neighborhoods of Tozer, like Ouled El Hadef, places special emphasis on the brickwork. Here, the bricks are used to make geometrical or floral patterns that are worth a closer look. As in all Tunisian cities, the souk in the Medina of Tozer is full of beautiful handcrafted items. We feel the influence of the desert in many of the objects. The patterns that we saw in the brick walls are echoed in the carpets and pottery sold at the souk. One of the shops sells larger objects and furniture that are decorated with the same patterns. It's clear that the architecture of Tozer has been an inspiration to its artisans. Before the sun sets, we hurry to finish up our shopping at a section of the market dedicated to geodes and stones. A fennec, or small desert fox, is napping in a shady corner. We head for our hotel to do the same. This morning, we're done with the SUVs. We'll complete our journey on board a comfortable tour bus, which will bring us from Tozer to Sousse with a stop in Kairouan. Kairouan is the fourth holiest city of Islam. Its rich heritage includes the Great Mosque, an architectural masterpiece that has served as a model for many other mosques. It has a tiered minaret, the oldest one still in use, which overlooks the 9,000 square meters occupied by the mosque. As a sign of respect, the women in our group cover their heads for our visit to the holy site. The muezzin's call to prayer echoes throughout the city. Inside the Great Mosque is a prayer hall roofed with a double dome, accessible through its 17 doors. The splendid columns made of marble and porphyry are indicative of the building's great richness. The mosque was partly built with valuable materials taken from the ancient site of Carthage, which we visited at the start of our tour. Observing its grandeur and its remarkable architecture, we understand why the Great Mosque is a landmark of the city of Kairouan. Even the sewer covers are made out of marble. Behind these intricately detailed doors is the prayer hall. While we can't film inside the mosque, the exterior of the holy site is a true feast for the eyes. These minutely detailed patterns are emblematic of the city of Kairouan. Remember them, because they will pop up elsewhere in other settings. There's another mosque in Kairouan that is also an important place of pilgrimage for Muslims. That's where we're going next. The Mosque of the Barber is surely a must-see for all visitors to Kairouan. It was built at the end of the 17th century on the tomb of one of the Prophet Muhammad's companions, who had died 1,000 years earlier. But why is it called the Mosque of the Barber? Legend has it that this companion, who was a barber, kept 3 hairs from the Prophet's beard with him at all times. It's also said that he was buried with these 3 hairs. The structure is fascinating. The central courtyard that leads to the various parts of the mosque is painted a soothing white. Inside the mosque, the walls are covered with brightly colored ceramic tiles and finely detailed white stucco panels that have been recently restored in the age-old traditional manner. The dazzling white of the stucco stands in sharp contrast with the bright glazes on the ceramic tiles. Like at the Great Mosque, distinctive geometrical patterns repeat themselves in the stucco and the mosaics. We go to see the tomb of the barber through a corridor lined with majestic columns. Here, too, the walls are covered with white stucco and richly painted ceramic. A dome has been built over the tomb, supporting a breathtaking chandelier. These were added when the mosque was built in order to give the barber a tomb worthy of a companion of Muhammad. The detail of the stucco work is striking, a true masterpiece. One last glance at the courtyard, and it's time for us to get back on the road. We leave the holy site filled with respect, lightness, and humility. As Kairouan is also extremely well known throughout Tunisia for its carpets, a visit to a carpet-making workshop is a must. The carpets of Kairouan are not woven, but rather hand-knotted. The number of knots per square determines the value of the carpet. Again, we find the Kairouan patterns that we observed on the walls of the mosques, recreated here in the carpets.
Ainsi, chez nous, on le met au mur comme une tapisserie. Mais ici, c'est plus large. Pour faire ça, Un an du travail, et pour faire ça, 2 ans du travail. 2 ans avec une seule artisan. Vous vous rendez compte, monsieur, dame, c'est 250 000 nœuds au mètre carré. Il faut faire tous ces nœuds, monsieur, dame. La soie. Bien sûr, la soie, il change la couleur. Regardez de l'autre sens. C'est plus foncé. Les différentes techniques du travail.
While the colors and the patterns vary, a carpet must be symmetrical to bear the Karawan name. We have a closer look at the carpets, searching for one that might look good in our homes. And then it's time to continue on for the last leg of our tour, from Karawan to Sousse. Called the Pearl of Sahel, Sousse is the 3rd largest city in Tunisia. Like many of the places we've visited on our adventure, it's an interesting mix of modern and ancient architecture. Sousse is a magnet for visitors from all over the world. There are many terraces that are open year-round where we can have a good meal. But what we really want is some fast food, Tunisian style. In our pita, a bit of mouth-watering meat cooked slowly on a spit, a bit of salad for show, and fries, lots of fries. We'll burn off any extra calories walking around the souk. The souk covers the Medina of Sousse from end to end. Shops full of handcrafted items are interspersed with little cafes, shoe shops, and stores selling the latest sports gear. The strategic position of this seaside city made it the object of many invasions over the course of its history. It was even bombed by the Allies during World War II. Wandering through the narrow alleys, we do our last-minute shopping. After all our experiences in the Tunisian souks, we're gonna have to find room in our bags to bring home all of our beautifully handcrafted souvenirs. And if we regret not having bought spices on the island of Jerba, there's still time to pick some up before we leave. Tunisia truly has something for everyone, from the north with its ancient cities and coastal towns to the south with its mysterious silent dunes and the proud nomads that inhabit them. The diverse country is a great destination for visitors in search of adventure. Its young, well-educated population has a great sense of hospitality, making us feel right at home, whether we're walking around ancient ruins or on a movie set. For another adventure, come along with us next time on The Joy of Touring.